Welcome to your custom deep dive. Today, we're exploring a pretty fascinating conceptual outline for a video. It basically tracks the typical life cycle of a Japanese man, right from his school days all the way through retirement.
Yeah, and our mission today isn't just to rattle off a list of life milestones. We really want to dig into the why, the unique cultural values driving this lifestyle.
Right, because it completely contrasts with the Western norms you might be used to. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, when you look beyond the basic timeline, the underlying systems like education and corporate structures, they reveal a completely different framework for navigating life. It's not just about what happens to someone, but how society molds their expectations from day one.
And that molding starts intensely early. When looking at the educational timeline, one stat completely blew my mind.
The school days.
Yes, Japanese high schoolers attend school for over 200 days a year. How does that sheer volume of schooling shape a kid before they even hit the workforce?
What's fascinating here is that those 200 days aren't strictly about academics. Sure, the severe exam wars to get into good schools define a huge chunk of their youth.
Right.
But there's an equally massive emphasis on club culture. These intensive group sports and activities, they focus heavily on mental growth, teamwork, strict discipline.
So it's preparing them for later.
Exactly. It essentially trains them for the group-oriented mentality they'll rely on as adults.
So you spend your entire youth navigating these high-stakes exams and strict club hierarchies. You graduate, you think there's a moment to breathe and figure yourself out. Right. No. The corporate machinery just immediately takes over with this massive wave of simultaneous work.
Yeah, that massive batch hiring totally eliminates the finding yourself or job hopping phase that is so common in the West.
Which is wild to think about.
You're expected to join a stable company and immediately start saving for marriage. The group conformity learned in school club culture transfers directly into corporate loyalty.
It just seamlessly carries over.
It does. This era becomes entirely dominated by the workplace. We're talking notoriously long hours, a deeply ingrained overtime culture, mandatory company trips, and year-end drinking clubs. The company basically becomes your primary community.
Okay, but if the company is your entire community and taking up all your time, what happens when it's time to build a family? Men are taking on mortgages and having kids, but there's a fascinating statistical reality here.
The childcare gap.
Yeah, traditionally, men's participation in childcare in Japan is quite low. It's slowly increasing, but the gap is still massive compared to overseas.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see exactly why that gap exists. Because these men are so firmly embedded in that company-first lifestyle, they rarely have the luxury of time.
Because they're dealing with peak career responsibilities.
And the relentless pressure of promotions. There's very little room left for personal hobbies, let alone splitting domestic duties evenly. The societal expectation and the heavy emotional and financial burden that comes with it is that they will stay at this exact same company, providing absolute stability until the day they retire.
Which makes the final phase of this life cycle absolutely jarring to think about. After decades of a rigidly work-centric life where your company dictates your schedule, your social circle, and your goals, it just stops.
Right.
You hit 60, and there's this sudden shift to living on a pension, maybe pursuing some hobbies, or spending time with grandkids in the countryside.
It's a dramatic pivot. A Japanese man's life is deeply bound by rigid systems of education, intense work commitments, and strict social norms. Beneath all of that, it remains a continuous, lifelong challenge to pursue individual happiness within those very structures.
It really is a completely different way of structuring life. And it leaves us with something to think about. If your entire routine, your social circle, and your core identity are dictated by a company-first mentality for 40 years,
Who do you become?
exactly. Who do you actually become the morning after you retire, when all of those external structures just vanish? Something for you to mull over. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.